Hello, guys. This is my U20 World Cup recap for the US U20s. I'm recording this right after they lost to Ecuador, so excuse me if I'm a little jaded. I'm going to try and review this entire World Cup, all 5 games of it, in a very non-biased way, non-recency biased way, due to the performance that I saw, which wasn't necessarily a bad performance. It wasn't enough for today, and Ecuador did deserve to get that win. We didn't finish our chances. We had some bad giveaways, and our transition defense just wasn't good enough. And that's what Tab Ramos, the U20 World Cup coach, he indicated that. He said that the transition defense was going to be very important to this team's success, and it turned out so. There were some standout performances. There were some players that really kind of lessened their view in the eyes of a lot of people who follow the United States youth teams. And I'm here to kind of go over player by player, because in the end, the performances and the results in the World Cup mean very little. It is very nice that this team, the U20s, made it to the quarterfinals for the third straight U20 World Cup. That's great. That shows really solid development. I think this was a really solid, in some instances, super team that was brought here. And there's a lot of guys that I think can play themselves into the actual senior team's picture by the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Other guys kind of viewed either as maybe not blue chip prospects, but elite level U.S. prospects. I think their value kind of lessened as well. It's a mix. I think Tab did a good job putting this team out there and giving them a shot, each match to compete at a pretty high level, with the exception of some of the games. I guess we'll just go over the games really quick. The 2-1 loss to the Ukraine, in which Brandon Cervania has the goal, Timo Weah has the assist, then the 2-0 Nigeria win, in which Sebastian Soto put together a brace. The 1-0 Qatar win, which was an ugly win. It was the ugliest of the 3 group stage games, easily, with Nigeria being the prettiest one. We played the best against Nigeria. Timo Weah scores the winner there. We had the great 3-2 win against France. Ledesma sets up Soto. Soto bags a brace. Rennick scores on the Serginho Dest. Parried shot from Alban Lafont, the French goalkeeper. And we pull out a miraculous 3-2 victory. And then today, we go down 1-0. Timo Weah scores 1-1. And then right before the half, they score against us with Abubakar Keita. It went to VAR. It seemed that he was playing the goal scorer offsides, but the ball was a back pass. It was a weird angle that FS2 gave us. So I couldn't. It was tough to tell. I thought it was offsides to start with as well, but they showed it that it wasn't. So let's just go over player by player. Again, my overall thoughts on this roster and thoughts on this tournament are very optimistic. There are a lot of really talented players that we saw, and I think they're going to implement themselves sooner rather than later. But there are also some guys that I would be concerned about for their future in the U.S. shirt. So let's just go over the guys that did not play at all. We had Edwin Cerrillo, the FC Dallas holding midfielder. When we talk about Chris Durkin, we'll talk about why I wanted to see Edwin Cerrillo. We didn't get to see him. We didn't get to see Julian Araujo, the Los Angeles Galaxy right back / center back. A lot of people were calling for his name after the game against the Ukraine, in which Dest had some defensive issues. We'll talk about how good Dest has been since that moment. And CJ Dos Santos, the Benfica goalkeeper. I frankly, of all the players on this list, know the least about CJ Dos Santos, so I'm not going to act like I watch Portuguese youth leagues and I know all too much about CJ Dos Santos. Positive, Araujo and Cerrillo, I think they're both 17. Actually, no, they're both 17. They're both going to be able to come back for the, I guess, what would that be, the 2021 U20 World Cup. If that is still Tab Ramos, he's going to have some guys that have, experienced a build-up for a tournament and experienced, the pregame for a tournament. And those are 2 really good players, 2 really good young MLS players. They're already receiving MLS experience. This is all very good stuff. We'll talk about goalkeepers. Brady Scott, I did not think had a good tournament. He has some innate athleticism and shot saving ability, but uh, his ability on corners and on crosses just was not good enough. And that's why Ochoa came in, the Real Monarchs, which is the USL side for Real Salt Lake. He came in, I thought he was better. He does concede 2 today, but he did keep us in the game right into the very end. He had some big saves. I think Ochoa proved himself to be the better of the 2 goalkeepers. I also think Ochoa is eligible for the next World Cup in 2021, so good stuff for him. I'm not sure about Scott, but as far as Ochoa goes, he I guess I should indicate what all these arrows mean. The arrow straight up indicates a really big boost in terms of their view as a prospect. Kind of the slight arrow, which you see with Yuli Linus right there, indicates that it's slightly improved. The dash mark, as you can see with Edwin Surreal here, means that they either stayed the way that I thought they were, or they just didn't play in Surreal and Araujo's case. Ochoa is one of those guys. I knew his talent. He's played well at the USL level. He made some big saves against Qatar. He was a little less than that today, but because it wasn't enough to get the result. But I'm still optimistic about his play here. Those are the goalkeepers. Let's go over the guys that I thought really improved their stock. Those are 4 guys. It's Chris Richards of Bayern Munich. He just got promoted to Bayern 2, which is playing in Bundesliga 3 next season. They got promoted, and he got promoted to Bayern 2. That's going to be really helpful in terms of his development. He was just a rock the entire tournament. Mobile, good aerial, good positioning. He got beat once today, and that's about the only time I can remember him getting beaten the entire tournament. Gloucester, the left back from Hanover, he was phenomenal, not only on the overlap, but on one-on-one defending, positioning himself on crosses. His stock boosted probably more than any of these guys, because with Weah and Pamukal and Richards, there was some level of, these guys are some of the better prospects in the pool. I don't think anybody, including myself, I liked Gloucester coming into this tournament, but he was phenomenal. Pamukal was our best midfielder, I think by a wide margin. He came on the field, was energetic, a great presser. He was a really good passer. He covered defensively. Basically everything you could ask for in a midfield, and it's something that, at the moment, the United States men's national team is looking for and lacks in terms of the depth of guys that can do that. I think he's probably the first guy from this roster to come in and make a cap for the actual senior team. Then you also have the guy that already has United States men's national team caps in Timo Weah, and rightfully so. He proved himself to be the best player that we brought in this tournament. 2 goals, 2 assists throughout the 5 games. He has the 1 goal today. It was a really good goal, and his defensive work rate is so good. His midfield play is spectacular. He's a great passer, really good in tight areas. He's, if you want to call him a blue chip prospect, he is as close as we got to it. The guys that I think their stock was slightly improved, again, besides the game against the Ukraine, Dest proved himself, at least in the last 2 games, the knockout stage games, and then today against Ecuador. I thought he was our second best player on the day. Defensively, he got a lot better. Offensively, he put himself into the midfield more often and was dynamic there. If you're a person that watches the senior men's national team and is wondering, who can play that Nick Lima role that Tyler Adams is now playing, so that we can move Tyler Adams to the 6, Serginho Dest is the guy. He's the next iteration of that position. He'll play it perfectly. Yuli Linus, I thought Linus was quite obviously the most dangerous player that we kept bringing off the bench. He was incredibly dangerous against France. I thought he was probably, if you don't want to call it the only reason, he was most certainly one of the reasons we were able to beat France. He was so good beating guys on the ball. I wanted him to lay it off a little bit more often, and I want to see him start some games, but he was spectacular, the Wolfsburg Youth Academy player. Rennick's New England Revolution striker, I question why he should even be on this roster. Proved me wrong, finishes the game-winning goal against France. Soto has 2 braces, 4 goals in 5 games. He had the chance today against Ecuador, which is why he's not one of those guys that I think is, like Pamukal has dramatically increased his stock, but he's having some contract issues with Hanover, who just got relegated to Bundesliga 2. That's going to settle itself out. He's going to find himself either on a new team or with Hanover, where he's going to get more playing time. In terms of guys that slightly decreased their value, again, I already mentioned Brady Scott. Matt Royale, he didn't play that much. The Philadelphia Union defender, I thought he was the worst player on this team, and I think he proved that to me when he came on. He was not good when he came on for Gloucester in the Ukraine, and that's just a small sample size, though. And then the big one in terms of guys that slightly, I think, decreased their outlook as a prospect was Alex Mendez. He does have a cannon of a left foot, but he really struggled to just get it going this entire camp. And Ledesma came on, and Ledesma was far more advanced in his play of striding and getting the offense forward. I only have Ledesma as kind of like a neutral gain because we expected this. We knew that he could do this. In the same way that Cervania, we knew that he's not a dynamic midfield player, but he's a body that can move, get into good positions, and run. Mendez, I expected more of that from, and I think Mendez was closer to the way that Cervania was playing when he was on the field than Ledesma was than when he was on the field. It doesn't mean that, his outlook for the men's national team is gone. I think Freiburg, he's going to get a lot of opportunities, but remains to be seen. Mark McKenzie, a guy that I think slightly decreased his value as well. He was the captain. He played right back for us against Qatar. It was just a really weird tournament for Mark McKenzie. I only have him as a slightly decreased value because he couldn't, surpass Abubakar Keita, who I have as a neutral in terms of his outlook, because I really wasn't expecting anything from him. The first few games against the Ukraine and Nigeria, he was great, and then the cracks started to come up, especially today against Ecuador. His passing and his positioning just aren't at the level that they need to be. Conrad De La Fuente was a kind of a neutral gain for me. I thought the one thing that people aren't appreciating of his is his defensive work. I thought he was defensively on the same level as Weah, who that's what I think, Weah is known for that. De La Fuente I don't think was. His best moments were early on against the Ukraine and Nigeria, but they kind of simmered down, and he was taken off at the half for Yuli Lainez. He's another guy that's eligible for the 2021 U20 World Cup. I think that's his time to shine. And then the only guy that I think drastically decreased his value was Chris Durkin. His positioning work and his passing work were sporadic at best, and his lack of athleticism wasn't made up for his strength. He was not strong in 50-50s or getting the ball. We saw it slightly against Qatar, where he picks up the second yellow and misses the France game. Cervania comes into the 6, changes kind of the dynamic against France. If you're looking for a moment in which Tab got it wrong, I think that was it. I think it was reintegrating Durkin back into that 6. He was not athletic enough today. He didn't win as many 50-50 balls. I don't know, in terms of the outlook for his club level, for DC United, I don't think he's going to fall off the map there, but just in terms of a U.S. prospect, he's slightly taken off my radar. Again, on my Twitter, I have more in-depth recaps of the games specifically. This was just an overview of each of the specific players. Again, it's just 21 of the players that were under 20 that were eligible for this World Cup. I didn't think that, they did themselves any wrongdoing. They really showed at times some fantastic playing soccer. They got the really huge win against France, and they came out and they played well to an extent again against Ecuador. I was expecting a loss, frankly, just coming off the high of beating France. It doesn't mean that this is a disappointment in any way. The overall goal of this tournament was to come out, show off some of these guys' talent. And like I said, there was a lot of guys that showed off immense talent that I think is going to be able to translate to the senior team. Really excited. A lot of these guys are going to be either playing for the U20s in the 2021 World Cup, or they're going to be playing in the Olympic qualifying team for the 2022 Olympics. All of it's very exciting. This is a really promising group of players. I want to see them keep developing, and I'm sure they will. Thank you.